On January 16, 2024, Silicon Valley, police break down the door of a quiet suburban home in Santa Clara, California. Inside, they found a young Google engineer, his hands swollen, dark purple, his clothes drenched in blood, but his eyes clear, too clear. On the floor beside him, his wife, her skull shattered from repeated blows. She is dead. The man looks at the police, calm as ever, and admits, "I punched my wife, I killed her." It should have been simple, but then something strange happened. He isn't cuffed, he isn't hauled off to the jail. Instead, the police sent him to the hospital, not for a night, not even two, for almost an entire week. Why? And there is something else. According to the coroner's report, his wife died around 1 a.m., but police didn't arrive until nearly 11 a.m. That means 10 full hours had already passed. 10 hours where he didn't call for help. 10 hours where he could have run. 10 hours where he did nothing. It leaves everyone asking, did he really just stay there with the body, hour after hour, waiting for the police to come and take him away? This is where the story stops just being a tragedy and starts becoming a mystery. Because during those missing 10 hours before the police arrived, and during those 6 days in the hospital, a different kind of script might have been written. It's not just about love, it's not just about violence, but about law, about money, and about how power bends the rules of justice. This is East Files with Richard, true crime stories from the East that the world needs to hear. Subscribe so you don't miss a single story. The man at the center of this tragedy was Chen Liren. The victim, his wife, was Yu Xuanyi. They had come to the United States from China before the COVID-19 pandemic, first as students, then staying on to build their careers. On the surface, they looked perfect. Both graduates of Tsinghua University, China's most elite school. Both alumni of the University of California, San Diego. Both engineers at Google. They married at the end of 2022. Just 4 months later, they bought a $2 million home in Silicon Valley. Their Instagram was full of travels, camping trips, cozy nights with their cat. To the outside world, they weren't just a couple. They were the couple everyone envied. But in China, people would have seen it differently. This was never just a marriage, it was a class mismatch. Chen Liren was born into privilege in Chengdu, China. His parents were high-ranking government officials. He grew up in a bubble, elite schools, constant praise, endless reminders that he was special. In families like this in China, achievement was everything. Emotional growth ignored. He learned that failure wasn't an option, and obedience from others was his right. Yu Xuanyi's story was the opposite. She came from Songyuan, a small city in northeast China. Her parents were ordinary teachers. She had no power behind her, no connections. Every step to Tsinghua, to UCSD, to Google, she carved out by herself. The Chinese have a saying, all roads lead to Rome. Chen Liren was born in Rome, the son of its nobles. Yu Xuanyi had to walk every step of the way, through failure and struggle, just to arrive there. That journey made her patient, enduring, grateful. She cherished her marriage, and she tolerated her husband. But those differences, the privilege that shaped him, and the resilience that shaped her, were never going to align. At first, the mismatch was invisible. On the surface, calm, but underneath, the crack was already there, waiting to erupt. On January 15, 2024, that afternoon, Yu Xuanyi rushed home from work. She had checked the kitchen camera and noticed something strange. Their cat had been crying all day. Liren must have forgotten to put out food, she thought. Both of them adored animals. They had even installed that camera just for the cat, so they could check on it while they were away. She quickly fed the cat, poured herself a coffee, and sat down at the family computer. Lately, her mood had been heavy. Her husband were leaving home early, coming home late, drifting further away. 2 weeks earlier, he had forgotten their wedding anniversary, despite her careful preparations. He brushed it off with a single sentence, "I forgot." But her instinct told her it was more than that. Something was wrong. She opened her Google email, hoping to distract herself. That was when she saw it. A new notification, Google Docs, shared with her. A document sent not just to her husband, but directly to her as well. She clicked. It was a fatal click. The kind of click that starts a countdown of her life. The sender was Jiang Mengqing, her husband's ex-girlfriend, and the document, thousands of words, a sprawling confession chronicling years of love between Jiang Mengqing and Chen Liren. Their childhood, their youth, their reunion in America. It was written with longing, regret, intimacy. And the worst of all, it was shared openly with Yu Xuanyi herself. This was no mistake. It was a message, a challenge. The third party stepping directly into the marriage, announcing her presence. As Yu Xuanyi scrolled, her heart sank. The words revealed what she had already suspected. 2 weeks earlier, on their wedding anniversary, Chen Liren hadn't simply forgotten. He had gone to a concert with Jiang Mengqing, wearing clothes Yu Xuanyi had bought for him. And afterwards, at the airport, he even kissed Jiang Mengqing goodbye. Every suspicion now had proof, and it wasn't whispered, it was published, documented, delivered straight to her inbox. It was more than anger, it was humiliation, betrayal, a collapse of everything she thought she had built. Yu Xuanyi's hands shook as she tapped a reply in the same document, just a few words. Jiang Mengqing, I hate you. When Chen Liren came home late that night, the house was no longer quiet. Words turned to shots, shots to ultimatums. Yu Xuanyi demanded a divorce. For Chen Liren, the word wasn't just personal, it was existential. His work visa, his life in the US, his image he clung to, everything felt like it was sleeping. Panic collided with pride. The argument sprawled. Sometime around 1 a.m., the fighting stopped. According to the coroner's timeline, that was the time Yu Xuanyi died. And then silence, no 911 call, no cries for help, no attempt to run, until police arrived nearly 10 hours later. Chen Liren appeared to do nothing. It leaves everyone in doubt, but the house wasn't empty. The kitchen camera, the one they had installed for their cat, kept watching, quietly recording everything. Around 1 a.m., the lights went out. Off camera, the sounds of a struggle, Yu Xuanyi's screams cutting through the dark. Hours later, at 4 a.m., the lights flicked back on. Chen Liren entered the kitchen. He raised a power tool to his neck, then slowly set it back down. Moments later, he returned, this time with a knife. He mimed self-harm again, but never broke the skin. No blood, just gestures, deliberate, staged, like a performance for the lens. It leaves everyone asking, why stage pain without injury? Why act for the camera instead of collapsing in private? The answer may lie not in what he did, but in when he did it. Because while California still slept, on the other side of the world, China was wide awake. It was the middle of the workday there, the perfect window for calls, for messages, for the West. For most people, 10 hours after murder would be chaos, panic, hiding, running, or breaking down. But Chen Liren was not most people. While his wife's body lay in the bedroom, Chen Liren was not alone. He reached across the Pacific Ocean back to China. And in those 10 hours, his family moved fast. Networks, connections, money, everything activated. Within minutes, Chen Liren had access to China's top criminal defense lawyers, the kind who charge tens of thousands for a single consultation. and immediately they began his first round of remote coaching: what to say, what not to say, and how to act when the police finally arrived. Chen Liren and his top lawyers knew something most of us never consider. The real defense doesn't start in the courtroom. It starts in the first hour after the crime. From that moment on, every gesture, every silence, every trace of evidence can be shaped, staged, and spun. And these lawyers were masters. They didn't need to prove Chen Liren innocent. They knew the murder itself was undeniable. What they needed was something else, another story, a disguise close enough to the truth that a jury might believe it. That disguise: mental illness. In America, a not guilty plea isn't always about proving facts. Sometimes it's about performance. The logic is simple and dangerous. Yes, Chen Liren killed his wife, but in that moment, he wasn't in his right mind. He was insane. He didn't understand what he was doing. So you cannot hold him criminally responsible. Pulling off that logic requires one thing above all: time. Time to bring in psychiatrists, time to stage evaluations, time for Chen Liren to learn step by step how to talk, how to act, how to be seen as unstable. And we've already seen it in motion, just a month after the crime. The media reported that Chen Liren's mother and grandmother had histories of mental illness. Soon after, Chen Liren himself refused to appear in court 6 separate times, each time citing poor health. On one occasion, he was actually enrolled to the courthouse when he suddenly claimed a mental breakdown and turned back to the hospital, leaving the judge waiting in an empty courtroom. By now, his lawyer had submitted medical records from 4 different hospitals, 4 expert reports, carefully cross-referenced, all portraying Chen Liren as textbook mentally ill. Even his bizarre behavior has been folded into the record, trying to bat people in jail, gripping Yu Xuanyi's photos with his teeth in court. Performances transformed into symptoms. Because Chen Liren and his top-tier lawyers knew the greatest weapon in the American system: procedural delay. They don't fight the charge head-on. They drag the case out, hearing by hearing, shift by shift, until the narrative itself changes, until the question is no longer did Chen Liren kill his wife, but was he even mentally competent when he did it? And now, after nearly 2 years of delays, this case is finally moving forward. At the last hearing, Chen Liren stood before the judge and, unsurprisingly, denied all charges. But when the trial opens, the spotlight will shift, witnesses will testify, evidence will be tested. We will be following every step, and we will bring you the latest as it happens. But the bigger questions remains. Why? Why didn't Chen Liren simply walk away from this marriage? Why didn't he choose divorce? Why did it have to end in death? What was it that pushed him over the edge? In our next episode, we will dig deeper into that question from a Chinese perspective, because to truly understand this case, you have to understand the culture, the background, the forces that shaped both Chen Liren and Yu Xuanyi long before they ever came to the United States. So stay with us, subscribe, support, and follow this channel, because the story of Chen Liren isn't over, and neither is our search for the truth. Thank you for watching. See you next time.